Why? Because I started to believe, oh, maybe if I'm just lay down in bed with him, then everything will be like normal. Maybe my mother will love me again.
Maybe if I lay in bed with him, my mother, will she love me again?
You saw those signs. What happened? You were in love. You just ignored the signs. Continue ignoring the signs now.
There is no marriage without fights. Let us not deceive ourselves. This is a man that I know that, oh, yes, he hates me, but yet he loves me.
If your husband sexually abused your child and you find out it's true, what are you going to do?
The man will
It should be
definitely
reported.
be reported.
Yeah.
But that does not feel me that I will divorce my husband. I want you to get that fact.
I want you to get that fact. Hello everyone and welcome to Miss 5MT. I am Miss 5MT. Welcome to my world. So, as you can possibly tell by the title, today we have a very intimate, serious subject. And before we get right into it, I would like to make this disclaimer. Parenting is complex and can be tough for various reasons. We need to ditch the stereotypes and open up honest conversations. Let's provide resources, a supportive atmosphere where all parents and future parents feel safe when it comes to asking for help. It's crucial to consider why some people might take a long time to share their parenting struggles or decide to take it to social media. The fear of judgment or being stigmatized can also lead individuals to keep their challenges private. Additionally, there might be cultural pressures or expectations that make it difficult for people to speak up. When someone does decide to share their story, especially on social media, it's important to respond with empathy and support. However, we should also be mindful of the potential consequences of sharing such personal experiences publicly. It can leave individuals vulnerable to criticism, unwanted attention, or even exploitation. Ultimately, our goal should be to create a supportive and inclusive environment where individuals feel comfortable seeking help and sharing their experiences without fear of judgment. We can work together to break down the stigma surrounding poor parenting and build a community where more people feel valued and supported. So initially what I will do is I'll be playing the video and I will make some commentary alongside it. I will not play the full video. I would advise that if you want to get more context around the video itself, that you should go and watch the video. I think I will most likely place the video link in my description box below for you to go and watch the complete video and the other videos that I will tag alongside within the video by yourself. So yeah, let's get started.
Welcome to my channel. So my name is Love, and guys, as you can see, I have a special guest. This is my mom. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hi, my name is Chanel. I'm a married woman, a mother of 4, and this one right here is my daughter,
the second child. Okay, so guys, this video is going to be quite a heavy one. We're going to be touching on a sensitive topic, so just a trigger warning to anyone. This video will touch on the subject of sexual assault and rape. Okay, so mom, so you basically want to share your story today. It was kind of unexpected, but there is no wrong time to tell your story. You are going to be explaining what happened to you, some of the things that you went through that no one should have to go through. So yeah, let's just start off. You to Nigeria, you lived there for a year, and then finally you make it over to the UK. I remember I've asked you this before, but like, could you describe your first day ever being in the UK? How did it feel like for you as a child?
I moved to the UK at the age of 12, but I remember it was roughly around Christmas time. Yeah, that's when I moved here at the age of 12 years old. When I moved here, I came to join my mother, who was married to my stepfather. We're living together at the time. It felt strange. It also felt exciting knowing that I'm going to finally live with my mom. It felt exciting at the start.
Yeah. So what was the house like?
When I moved into the UK, we lived in a studio.
Okay.
And quickly after that, we moved into a 3-bedroom house, which I can remember I had my own bedroom at the time.
Because you were the oldest, isn't it?
Yeah, I was the oldest in the house, and my two little sisters. One was just a baby. And my other sister at the time, she was about 5 or 6, if I can remember. Moving into the bigger house was again very challenging. It was just instruction or commandment. Do this, do that, do that, do that, do that, do that.
So you feel as though your relationship with your parent was based off of your ability to perform certain tasks and to do it well?
Yes.
So you feel as though you had conditional love? It was based off of conditions?
Like, it was
if you
based
this
on
good,
condition.
then...
There wasn't, I didn't know what was love. There was...
So initially, that is the first highlight of the video, that she felt, or she was convinced, or she was aware, or she was exposed to love that was conditional. And this, again, is from her biological mother. I'm going to continue highlighting certain points because it will then paint a bigger picture, and I'll be able to explain it in more detail in some time.
Home in the UK, like what was it like? Family dynamics, everything.
The stepfather, he was everywhere. He didn't really have much to say to each other. As I just met my stepfather a couple of weeks, then moved into a bigger house, there was literally just no conversation in the house. There was no happy family atmosphere in the house that I could remember.
Why do you think that was?
After I had finished all the tasks, I was no longer needed.
So that you were just dismissed?
Yeah, so dismiss, leave us alone. Because of that, I quickly was drawn to myself. Like I had no one to talk to. After I've had dinner, go to my room and sit there. And sometimes I would sneak into the dining room to see whether I can watch TV, but I couldn't because the TV was already taken.
I don't know if this is like important or relevant or not, but what was school like for you? Like, did you have any friends? What about friends from Congo that also moved over to the UK? Did you have any social life outside of your household?
So initially, I played this bit so we all are on the same page. We all have some sort of context. And now we are going to get into the nitty-gritty.
But other than that, the relationship didn't go any further outside the school.
Being isolated within your household, that affected your ability to connect deeply with friends?
Yes.
Okay, so what was going on at home, Mum? So what happened?
At home, I started noticing some unusual behavior. Normally, as I said, most of the time I'll be in my room. The reason that I started staying in my room even more is because when I'll be in the dining room, like to watch TV or to try and join in with them, he would start doing some funny movements, like opening up his legs, touching himself, like giving you the looks, like he would just roll up his eyes, like, you know, when someone's trying to chat you, or when someone's being a womanizer, the way they look at each other, the way, the sign things that they do, my stepfather will be doing it and literally be like staring at me to have eye contact with me.
So just to confirm, this is the stepfather that she's talking about, her stepfather that she's talking about, and she was, at this time, aged 12.
Time I would just look away, and most of the time I would just quickly get out of the living room, go to my room and think, is that normal? What's he trying to do? I would just get out of his way. And most of the time when he will wear trousers, you will see a hole between the legs, and within that hole you can basically see everything, his private parts. So when I started noticing this behavior around him, I started disconnecting myself even more, or go to the kitchen, just find any other place that I could be so that I didn't have to see what he was doing.
How long had you been living there with your family for that to have started happening?
A couple of months when we moved into that property. When my stepfather would go to the bathroom, he would knock the door. He would leave the door open, knowing that my mother was not in the house. So this would be like me in the house and my 2 little siblings. So I would go to the bathroom, and there he is in the bathroom doing his thing. For example, if he was peeing, he would just stand there and look at you and open his eyes as if someone is inviting you, like, come on, you can join me. Or when he was in the toilet doing number 2, he would just be staring at you, and I would quickly just run.
That's so disturbing.
So at this point, again, I'm re-emphasizing that she's 12 years old, and it's also at this point that she's first noticing, or on multiple occasions noticing, unusual body language that her stepfather keeps repeating.
Do about that, because by this point you were still like 12 years old, right?
Still 12 years old. Yeah.
That's a lot to have to deal with at 12 years old. So what did you do?
At the time, I didn't really do much because I didn't have a relationship with my mother where I can communicate with her and tell her that this is what's happening. This is what your husband or your partner is doing, like the looks, wearing clothes that had hole where you can see his private parts. So I didn't really have anything to say to my mother at that time, but I was telling it to my friends in school. This is what's happening at home. And that was it.
So at this point, she couldn't voice her opinion because the relationship had not been established, the relationship between mother and daughter. And again, moving from house to house, one location to another, doesn't allow there to be a solid foundation or a place to call home. Let's understand the difference between a house and a home. A house is the physical, like mortar, brick by brick type of building. And a house is where the brick by brick is being built, and a home is what we call where the heart is, where it is a place, or we call it a place of rest, where family is built, where the relationships are built, where trust is built, where you know that there is some sort of emotional connection. There is love that can be found in a home. It's family that turns a house into a home in this occasion.
The response that your friends gave, because at that age they couldn't really do much either because they were also kids, but they did.
And also again, the effect of not being able to establish the difference between the house and the home, or not being able to establish the relationship between mother and daughter, the effect of this is usually that the child is no longer in an environment that is considered safe. And it also leads me to ask, what type of vetting was done in order to build a healthy relationship between the two? Being brought up in a household where nothing can be questioned and there's only like one-way communication, again, it sounds like something that most likely had happened to the mother in her own upbringing. And then again, she's just repeating what she knows. But again, I cannot speak for the mother. It's just food for thought. On that topic as well, I would like us to check out this video briefly.
When we were kids, our parents and our parents' friends would frequent each other's houses a lot. And we'd go to parties and house parties, and all the children would come along because there wasn't any childcare. And it was normal, and we enjoyed it. But we also had situations where uncles or aunties would babysit the kids, or uncle this, who wasn't a blood uncle, would babysit, or this cousin. Unfortunately, many people went through physical and sexual abuse. And that was cousins, uncles,
Just people.
just random people. And because of that abuse, it's brought us to this point now where we've had kids, and a lot of people are saying, my kid isn't going anywhere. That is out of my sight. My kid isn't sleeping anywhere because of that fear that someone's going to abuse their child.
And the dining room leads to the kitchen. So the door that was on the left-hand side, where I was sitting in the dining room, I was facing the door on the left-hand side. And my two sibling wives, one was sitting on my right, one was sitting on my left. So as it was getting darker, I remember it was around 6 or 7 in the evening. So this man was out, he came in, he went upstairs. And as I was deep into the movie with my siblings, let's just say about half an hour or 40 minutes deep into the movie after he had come back in, and we're talking about this man who was over 6 feet tall. So I think his shadow standing there, the only light we had was the reflection from the TV, which you can see in the dining room, but you couldn't really see what was going on in the corridor. And then this man must have been standing there for a good few minutes. And then all of a sudden, at that point, when the movie went on a break, I looked clearly. I saw my stepfather standing right in front of the door, naked, with nothing on. When I say naked, he had nothing on. And you can see his male part. He was actually holding it. It was like the way he was holding his private part and actually massaging it on one hand, and on the other hand, he was like doing this, like calling me to come over to him at the time. And then when I saw it, immediately I screamed. When I screamed, my little sister at the time, the younger one, who was about 1 year old, she started crying. As she started crying, I started crying as well. And then my other sibling also started crying as well. As I screamed and we all started crying, this man realized that I wasn't into his game, so he quickly ran upstairs. As he was running upstairs, I had both of my siblings carrying one and holding one hand, so we can leave, because I knew that there was nothing that I can do if I stay in the house. This man somehow was going to me as he was.
So again, I'm repeating and I'm re-emphasizing the age. This is happening while she is 12 years old. This is again another opportunity or another occasion where the stepdad shows unusual body language towards his stepdaughter. And considering she is a minor, legally, the law recognizes that children are not able to develop mentally to make decisions about some things. let alone including when to engage in sexual behaviors. That brings me to the point why I keep re-emphasizing the age. 12 years old, 12 years old, 12 years old. I want us to understand one thing when it comes to, let's say, prime. Men's prime and women's prime. And there's a social construct. There's also something called a sexual market value in regards to opposing genders. So, for example, in the eyes of a man, a sexual market value for women would be so and so, and on the other hand, a woman considering a man, and the sexual market value would be an X number of age of years. Now, for men, usually their prime is between the ages of 30 and 40. So this includes, let's say, for example, when you meet an 18-year-old, 25-year-old, 28-year-old, you would find that majority, if we're talking about the working class man, the majority are usually figuring out life, figuring out how to become financially stable, figuring out how to be presentable to a woman and be able to be emotionally mature enough to raise a family, have a wife, and have kids. So it's one side being emotionally stable and another side being financially stable. And again, the attractiveness based on that usually is between the ages of 30 and 40. It peaks on at 40. So for women now, the age that women are considered to be at their prime. So this is when you're most energetic, you can soak in as much information, you're just doing the most, as they may call it, or as you may understand it, or as you may call it, is 18. 18 is usually the sexual market value, as well as the prime age of a woman. Some may say, yes, it's between the ages of 18 and 25, but they say that it peaks at 18 and then it starts to slowly decrease after that between the ages of 18 and 25. So my question now is to you, or my question out loud is, if it now peaks at 18 and then starts to decline, that means the sexual market value of a woman, again, because in the Western society, a woman's age, or a woman is considered an adult at 18. Is considered an adult at 18. Let's just take a look at this video and then I will explain further, okay?
So it's like young men are double fucked. They're at the lowest of the low of all of their status hierarchies that they have to compete in. And they can be that way for 10 years because it can take about that long to develop an emotionally compelling lifestyle that might be the best option for a woman that man is authentically attracted to. Okay? So what do men have to do? They have to do a lot. And the first thing they have to do is they have to learn how to wait. So this has to do with let's call it the normalized sexual marketplace values of men and women, according to the research. So women's normalized sexual marketplace value peaks at 18 years old and drops precipitously from that day forward. It never rises again. Men's normalized sexual marketplace value is lowest at 18, gradually rises up until about 40, remains constant for about another 20 years, and then slowly declines into old age. It isn't until 30 years old that the average male sexual marketplace value exceeds the average woman's sexual marketplace value for the
Facts. So again, I wanted to play this because again, it's coming out of a psychologist's mouth, and it also comes out from a male's mouth. Sometimes when we do say certain things and we don't back it up, I guess, with some sort of evidence, it becomes opinion. But when facts are stated, when things that are running our society is stated, I think it's imperative, it's important to back it up with facts. So, I emphasized on the prime age and the sexual market value of both men and women. Why? Because again, as I said, if it peaks at 18 for women and then declines, that means in order to rise up, in order to get there, it must start from a certain age. And again, that means it starts from under 18. That means that a 12-year-old is a target. That means that a 12-year-old there's a likelihood of her being a victim. That means a 12-year-old is a prey to predators, to minor attracted people. These things are common.
Was ready to do it. So as he ran upstairs, I opened the front door and stood right in front of the door. Now, at this point, I didn't speak English at all. I had no words of English. I'm standing at the door, crying and screaming, not knowing what to do. He runs upstairs, closes the door, dresses up, comes up and leaves us standing on the door, gets into the car, then drive off. Bear in mind, this was winter. Half an hour or 45 minutes later, he comes back and...
Bear in mind, this is winter. Bear in mind, this is winter. I wanted to also take into consideration, or I want you to take into consideration, that if this lady in question, if this child in question does also voice her opinion, and let's say, for context's sake, the only option is to confront and kick the stepdad out, the mother is now left alone with 3 kids, a big house, and a cold bed. 3 kids, a big house, and a cold bed. When it comes to a cold bed, certain things, when you just stick to looking at it surface level, you misunderstand the depth in how deep something can go. Do you think it's only young people, young boys and girls, that want to keep their bed warm at night, especially on a cold winter's night? Do you really think that's the case? Do you really think that the cold winter nights of November, December, even September and August, or January and February, that leading up to Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day is usually the deadline, that it's just young boys and girls that want to keep themselves warm at night? No. Do you know the extent in which young people would manipulate, convince either young men or young women to keep them occupied on cold winter's night? Do you then realize that also the elderly, I would call them mature, but some of them are not, what extent they would also go to in order to keep their bed warm at night on a cold winter's night? Have you ever considered that? Another thing I also considered was immigration issues. If she does confront him, or she does kick him out, or she gets authorities to come and take him out, if they don't have their citizenship, either the woman in question, so the mother or the stepfather, if they don't have their immigration, if they don't have their citizenship, they're at risk of either getting deported, either the man or the woman, and that then wastes all that effort trying to come to the Western world in the first place, trying to come over to greener pastures in the first place. Another thing I considered was, okay, forgiveness. How about forgiveness? Forgive and cover up. Come together, we speak about it as family members, and we cover the shame. You cover the shame or you cover the man, either or, right? that's also an option. But then it's like, okay, you will forgive, but then it's the duty of the child to forgive. Is the child familiar with how to do that? What steps would have to be taken in order to convince the child that he is worth forgiving? What is also promised that it will not repeat itself again? Another thing that we can look at beyond surface level is, what are you now teaching the children if you now take that route? You are now teaching the females what to tolerate, and you are now teaching the males how far they can go and how much they can get away with. And if they take this into their adulthood, what does that then lead to? It would lead to a society filled with men that are entitled and continuously committing sin against their own fellow brother or sister or children. And women tolerating being used as a sexual product from people that they should consider as family. Interesting.
A friend of mine was hit starved to death just because of beans. That the beans was not soft enough for a man to eat. I've experienced coma, good 3 times. I'm telling you my life history.
You saw those signs. What happened? You were in love. You just ignored the signs. Continue ignoring the signs now.
There is no marriage without fights. Let us not deceive ourselves. This is a man that I know that, oh yes, he hates me, but yet he loves me.
If your husband sexually abused your child and you find out it's true, what are you going to do?
The man will
It should be
definitely
reported.
be reported.
Yeah.
But that does not feel me that I will divorce my husband. I want you to get that fact.
I want you to get that fact. So I just played that video just to re-emphasize that this is a global topic. This is an international topic. This topic is increasingly becoming less and less taboo. I want to re-emphasize that this topic is not just close to home. It is a topic that a lot of homes require to talk about. That there are numbers and statistics to how many people are victims of this crime. Right. So even if you don't talk about it, or you don't want, a fellow family member to talk about it or bring up to social media, that there are other people making an effort to raise awareness about it, including myself.
There we were, standing in front of the door, crying, and he comes back with my mother. Now, I don't know what he told my mother on the way back. She grabbed the 2 little one off my hand and told me to quickly go inside the house. So as I went back inside the house, I was just crying. I was sobbing my eyes out. I was crying and crying and crying. My mother, still at this point, she didn't ask me what was going on. I remember at the time we had another uncle, he was called, he came into the house. Now, at that point,
the mother did not ask why the daughter was crying. The mother sees her daughter crying and does not ask what is wrong. So emotionally, she was unavailable. This can be linked to, again, upbringing. But a byproduct of this is that it leads to anxious and insecure children, especially females. So if you are a female watching this, or you are a mother watching this, be aware that if your levels are high in anxiety or insecurity, it could be possibly linked to having an emotionally unavailable mother. The symptoms of high functioning anxiety could be if you tend to put off tasks due to the fear of failure, if you use alcohol or substances to cope, if you have the constant need for reassurance. And again, the daughter not being able to open up to her mother in communication and confusion about her questions and observations confirms that her mother was emotionally unavailable.
Uncle came in, he's the one that asked me, what's going on? Why are you crying? And I had to tell him the whole thing, the whole story.
That's the first time you spoke?
Yes.
Wow.
What had happened. When I was telling this uncle what had happened, my mother was sitting there listening. And my stepfather was also sitting there listening. And I thank God when they asked him, he did not deny it. He didn't deny anything, but he didn't say anything. So he just sat there looking guilty. He sat there looking guilty and not saying anything. And I don't know what my mother did after that, but nothing changed.
Nothing changed. The stepfather doesn't deny the accusations, but the silence continues and everything resumes as normal or as usual.
That's not the worst part. Soon after that, the living condition in the house got even worse. At this point, I had lost all the respect that I had for my stepfather. Nothing was done. The husband and wife thing carried on as normal in the household. And I became like really, really bitter and angry because I knew that I did nothing to provoke this man. I wasn't dressing indecent. I didn't have that type of body that you would die for. No, I was just a normal 12-year-old girl. Normal. You know.
So losing respect, she lost respect for her stepfather, which to some would understand as to why. In the community, respect is given according to title in the African community. If you're a pastor, if you're a doctor, if you're a teacher, a manager, a boss, an entrepreneur, but depending, respect is naturally given according to your title. Wife, husband. However, in the West, respect is earned in addition to that. One without the other causes an imbalance to how people will treat you, even within your own household. So the bitterness that she's feeling or she felt came from injustice. And again, I'm re-emphasizing 12 years old.
You know, I didn't know what men and women do to each other at this point. I didn't know. So seeing someone that was so big and tall, naked, to me, it traumatized me to the point that I wasn't able to eat. Every time I would think about it, it made me sick. Like, it really made me sick.
Yeah.
So I started looking for ways to protect myself. Remember, my stepfather's relative came to visit us at that point, and this was in spring. I had no contact with my mother, no contact with him because I avoided him in every possible way. And I had no contact with my siblings. The only time I had contact with them when my mother would be out, and she expected me to look after, to feed them, to carry on as normal. Now, to this day, my mind was just turning. My mind was troubling me. Your partner tried to with me. Now, this man would have done it if I had allowed him. But then, being the good child as I was, I did not allow this man to touch me. Soon after that, as I said before, this was spring.
So this man would have sexually assaulted her to the highest degree if she would have allowed him to touch her. I also want to highlight, because morally, it sounds incorrect, the moral compass between adult and child. The child has a sense of something is wrong, something is not adding up, something is not making sense. The child strives for justice, some sort of justice, not even being familiar with what justice means, with what justice stands for, but internally has that sense of morality and justice. And these are the two things that women naturally have, biologically.
And my stepfather's came to visit him at the point. Now, my mother, I remember this day very well also. My mother was upstairs with him in the room. I was also in my room. At this time, my stepfather's relative was downstairs. I walked into the kitchen. I saw my stepfather's relative, my sister. Now, bear in mind, this is not far from what had just happened to me. They were both kneeling down. I remember him very well. He was holding his private part. He was half naked from the bottom part. And my sister was bent. And this man was on it with my little sister. And I started screaming again, as loud as possible, like really screaming out. As I was screaming out and shouting, this man quickly got up and pulled up his trousers, and stepfather and my mother came downstairs. And I just said, I saw him. He was... She started shouting, shouting at him. I was just crying my eyes out. I went upstairs, lost, confused, didn't know what to do. At the time, she was about 5 or 6.
At the time, she was about 5 or 6 when this happened. I'm re-emphasizing the prime age of women in the sexual market value range as well. That it is 18. And remember, I said, if the prime is 18 and then it declines, it has to start from somewhere. We thought 12 was low. It's not low enough. 5 and 6-year-olds as well are victims of predators, of men that are supposed to be responsible and trusted in our community. Married men, men that have women in their lives, men that have accessibility to different types of women, their age, or just a bit younger, or even just a bit older. But no, 5 and 6, 10 and 12.
I saw it. I saw it. And every time when I think about it, I'm thinking, what am I doing in this place? Why am I in this house? Why is this happening? Why am I the one seeing it, witnessing it?
I want to take this section out of the book. I will post it on the screen just to also re-emphasize that it's not just stuff that happens in the Congolese community. No. In the African community. No. It's very common worldwide, no matter the race, no matter your color, no matter your age, no matter your location. As we now know, war is not the only calamity that leaves human lives in ruins. While about a quarter of the soldiers who serve in war zones are expected to develop serious post-traumatic problems, the majority of citizens experience a violent crime at some time during their lives. And more accurate reporting has revealed that 12 million women in the United States have been victims of rape. More than half of all rapes occur in girls below the age of 15. For many people, the war begins at home. Each year, about 3 million children are reported as victims of child abuse and neglect. 1 million of these cases are serious and credible enough to force local child protective services or the courts to take action. In other words, for every soldier serves in a war zone abroad, there are 10 who are endangered in their own homes. This is particularly tragic since it is difficult for growing children to recover when the source of terror and pain is not from enemy combatants, but their own caretakers. If you want to know where the book it came from is The Body Keeps Score. I'm currently reading it, and this is why, because I knew I'd be speaking about this, I took this section out of the book to really re-emphasize that it's not just our own people. It's not just something that, if we don't talk about it, we're not helping ourselves and we're not helping anybody else either. But it's something that has started long before we came, and it will continue long after we're gone. But it is our duty right as of now to inform, to educate those that are uneducated. Because to know and not to do is not to know. If you know and you don't do, if you know and you don't apply, you don't know anything. Because why is the knowledge not applicable? Why is the knowledge not practical? Why are you not practicing what you know?
And still, I was still in that property. When these things happened, we were living in East London, and then we moved from East London to North London. At this time, I wouldn't get to the car with him because he was driving at the time, my stepfather. I wouldn't go to the car with him, just us alone. I wouldn't. And sometimes he would come to pick us from school. My little sister will get into the car. I will walk home. Wow. And that was fine. My mother didn't care. Nobody cared. I would walk to school. I would come back home to school.
And how far was it from your house?
A good 20 minutes walk. Yeah.
Wow.
A good 20 minutes walk.
How old were you here?
At this time, I must have been 13 or 14 at the time.
Okay. That's so far though.
Yeah. I would say about 14 years old. My mother was pregnant for the second time with my stepfather. And we moved into this place in North London now. Bear in mind, the things that was happening in the old house started again happening into this new place. At this time, my other sibling that was left in Congo, she came to join us. I didn't really have the relationship with my mother, but I can still see that she was so close to my other sibling, like to the point that, I don't know, but this is how I feel, like she told them, like, she's the bad one. Don't talk to her. Very isolated.
Like marginalized, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like I was the bad one because I was speaking out.
Isolation amongst women that are naturally supposed to be communal people for no justifiable reason other than to keep her man at home and her bed warm at night bears me to differ. Why? Because it's her biological mother. Biological mothers and seeing their daughters as a threat, don't they notice or see beyond or choose to see beyond the consequences? Again, as I say, what are you teaching your daughter? What are you subconsciously teaching her through your actions? Remember, kids learn through behavior. They pick up on body language. They don't practice what you tell them to practice. They practice what you do, what they see you doing. What they see you doing is what they will repeat because they don't know any better. And as you can see from the chart, the feelings chart that I'm going to post on the screen as well, it's not just feelings of jealousy that some biological mothers can show, but it's also feelings of hostility, being hostile towards your child, finding all other reasons outside the main issue, the main culprit, to cast blame on.
Wasn't fair. Emily looked up at me and said, "Oh, I just thought you didn't care." "Oh no," I said, "I care. But at that moment, I didn't know that I was angry at Nana and not at you. I am sorry." As it is evident in this story, your child's behaviour is threatening to trigger your past feelings of despair, longing, loneliness, jealousy, or neediness outside of your awareness. And so you unknowingly take the easier option. Rather than emphasising with what your child is feeling, you short-circuit to being angry or frustrated or panicked. Spend time to think about what it may have felt like for you as a baby or a child around the same age as your child. Will help you develop empathy for your child. That will help you understand and feel with them when they behave in a way that triggers you into wanting to push them away. Another critical aspect of children do what we do philosophy is talking to ourselves. We often have a sort of continual chatter in our head. Maybe you are saying to yourself, "I can't trust anyone. I'm hopeless. I'm never good enough. I should affect your child." Example from real life. Elaine is the mother of 2 children and works as an art gallery assistant. She has thought of failure in her head. "I shouldn't try something because it won't work. I'll be bad at it. I'll embarrass myself." Elaine also knows that she inherited this mindset from her mother. Her mother was a worrier, has never felt good enough, has a lot of negativity. Fortunately, Elaine has learned to deal with her inner critic, and she was determined not to pass it on to her children. She overrides her fears not to discourage her kids, to show them it's not so bad to fail. Elaine has taken up painting again, despite the voice telling me to give up. Rather than judging what she paints, she trains herself to notice what she enjoys about it and which bits of each painting please her. If we take Elaine example, we can draw these lessons. 1. First, recognise the voice. 2. Don't engage with it or argue with it. 3. Expand your comfort zone. 4. Being aware of the dangers of passing your inner critic onto your child will give you an extra incentive to be mindful of it. Feelings. As a human being, we feel before we think, and in this regard, a baby is a pure feeling, a bundle of feelings. Maybe you have not experienced your feelings witnessed and understood by your parents, but it is a fundamental prerequisite of human beings. If a child knows they will be seen and soothed, but not judged by you, they are more likely to tell you what is going on for them. If there is one essential tip, it is this: do not get into a battle about what a child is feeling. Your 8-year-old might say, "I don't want to go to school." You are going, and that's that. But saying, "You hate school right now, don't you?" is more comfortable for your child to hear. It opens up the dialogue rather than shutting it down. You should take their feelings seriously, consider them when making decisions, and soothe the feelings, not by denial or distraction, but by acknowledgement and understanding.
Mother knew the parents, and so she called each and every single one of them and told them not to be friends with me because I was a very bad girl.
So your biological mum essentially tried to ruin your reputation,
Yes.
so that your friends could also marginalize you and distance themselves from you.
Distance themselves from me as I was the bad one. I did not have any respect for both of them in the house because I refused to go in bed with her husband.
Wow.
Now, not only they mistreated me, but also the parents also mistreated me. As you know, word of mouth can spread very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But people did not know that it was because I was trying to protect myself from this monster. This property that we moved in, my bedroom was at the very back. You needed to go through a long corridor. You go past the bathroom, then my bedroom was at the very end. So they gave me a bedroom that was far from everybody else. At this point, the situation had escalated from worse to extremely bad. To the point that when my mother would cook, I couldn't even come to the kitchen and eat.
Wow.
I could not eat.
She would not give you food?
No, and she wouldn't even call me to come downstairs and eat. I mean, sometimes we do have a misunderstanding between me and my daughter. But when the food is ready, it's my job, it's my responsibility to let her know that food is ready for me to come downstairs and eat. Whether she decides she wants to come downstairs and eat or not, that's up to her. But I still give her that choice. You can come and join us on the table. And I wasn't allowed. I was never called on the table. At this point,
At this point, if a parent or caregiver fails to provide a minor's basic needs for safety, shelter, or nutrition, this is called minor endangerment. Minor physical abuse is considered when a parent or, let's say, a caregiver deliberately withholds food or shelter. Physical abuse is not just limited to hitting, scolding, or pushing. The list is extensive.
bad in school. I wasn't concentrated in school. It felt as if I was losing my mind, but somehow.
This can also lead to an eating disorder. She then explains that it leads her to go stealing in supermarkets, shops, small snacks that she could fit into her pocket, fit into her bag, because there was no food at home. She even became dependent on her college mates being able to buy her lunch. And that was the food that she would depend on day in and out.
My mother knew the parents, and so she called each and every single one of them and told them not to be friends with me because I was a very bad girl.
So your biological mum essentially tried to ruin your reputation,
Yes.
so that your friends could also marginalize you and distance themselves from you.
Distance themselves from me as I was the bad one. I did not have any respect for both of them in the house because I refused to go in bed with her husband.
Wow.
Now, not only they mistreated me, but also the parents also mistreated me. So when I would come back, my bed will be a mess, like someone has been sleeping on my bed. And because my younger sister, she was a troublemaker. She was a troublemaker. She will know when she watches this video. She will know that I'm talking about her. I used to think that she's the one that would come and sleep in my room or at least jump on my bed or mess up my bed. And I would get so angry. Like when I come back, I put my bag down. I just want to lay down on my bed after walking for an hour to get back home. Sometime under the heat, under the sun, just to get back home. And when you come back home, you want to relax. You want to lay down. And I wasn't able to do that because I don't like laying down on a messy bed. And I remember this day, I was so angry. All of my snacks were eaten. My bed was a mess. So I went downstairs angry. I didn't care who was in the living room, who was there. I grabbed my little sister. I was so angry. I confronted her, like, why would you come and sleep on my bed? Why would you come and mess up my bed? And then she said, no, it's not me. It's not me. It's not me. It's Dad who was sleeping on your bed. I turned around. I see this dad sitting on the other side. And I went up to him. I started confronting him. Why in the world would you leave your bedroom in the same house, come and lay down on my bed? What is so special about my bed that you want to lay down on it? When you have your own bedroom, your bed is super king size. My bed was a single bed.
Wow.
The covers that I had on it, I had it over 2 years, the same cover. I would just wash it, then put it back in. Wash it by hand. I was not allowed to use anything in the house. I was not allowed to do anything in the kitchen. The only thing I was allowed to use was the bathroom. And so I started lashing out. And my mother was in the kitchen at the time. When she heard me lashing out at her husband, she started fighting me like. And I said to her, wait, don't, wait, just hold on. Your husband was sleeping on my bed. Do you know that? And it's not the first time. Why is he doing that? And you know the response that I got from my mother? Look, this is his house. He can lay down any places he wishes to. And I said, why out of all the places, why on my bed? Why? I kept on asking, why on my bed? I had enough.
Yeah.
I had enough. Soon after that.
The response she got from her mother leads me to ask, how far is too far when it comes to defending your husband or your significant other when something isn't adding up, when something isn't right, when something is clearly harassment or bullying? How far is too far?
I decided to leave. Why would you let that someone who is not my biological father, someone who tried to me, now at this point, he did try to me again.
Wow.
Again. But still, she was telling people that I was actually a liar, that I was a troublemaker, that I was telling lies about her husband.
So by this point, you decided that you were going to leave because enough was enough. So what did you do? Where did you go?
I went to stay with one of their cousins. Am I allowed to say her name? No. I went to stay with one of the cousins, one of work, just a long distance cousin. Then go back home. Because I knew I had nothing to go back home for. I was living as if I had no mother, I had no father, I had no sibling. None of my siblings were talking to me. None of my siblings were kind to me. None. I felt betrayed. And I felt lost. And I started to believe that I was the bad one. Why? Because I started to believe, oh, maybe if I just lay down in bed with him, then everything will be like, no, maybe my mother will love me again.
Maybe if I lay in bed with him, my mother, will she love me again?
I decided to leave. Why would you let someone who is not my biological father, someone who tried to me? Now, at this point, he did try to me again.
Wow.
Again. But still, she was telling people that I was actually a liar, that I was a troublemaker, that I was telling lies about her husband.
So by this point, you decided that you were going to leave because enough was enough. So what did you do? Where did you go?
I went to stay with one of their cousins. Am I allowed to say her name? No. I went to stay with one of the cousins, one of work, just a long distance cousin. Then go back home. Because I knew I had nothing to go back home for. I was living as if I had no mother, I had no father, I had no sibling. None of my siblings were talking to me. None of my siblings were kind to me. None. I felt betrayed. And I felt lost. And I started to believe that I was the bad one. Why? Because I started to believe, oh, maybe if I just lay down in bed with him, then everything will be like, no, maybe my mother will love me again.
Maybe if I lay in bed with him, my mother, will she love me again? The question of maybe if I lay in bed with him, my stepfather, maybe my mother, will she love me again? This shows the danger of now placing sexual intercourse in the same category or in the same line as love or validation. See how dangerous that is? Women growing up, females growing up, when especially if raised in a fatherless household, and they're insecure and they're anxious and they have no father, or the fathers that are there but they're not actually present, going to seek for validation from another young gentleman that most likely has nothing to offer her, trying to figure out his life, trying to finish his education. She is now seeking for validation, seeking for love. And then when triggered, or when the opportunity arises for this validation or this love presented to her as sexual intercourse, she will most likely see it as the norm. And it will now subconsciously tell her that, of course, she's always been seen as a sexual object. And if what she's really after, which is validation and love, if that's something she's after, and the only way she can get it is with sleeping with a man, then what has she got to lose? Because it's always been the case. I call this strategy conquer and divide. All she wanted was her mother's validation, her mother's attention, or something that was impossible to achieve, which was love. And again, let's look at it in the mother's point of view, right? Maybe in the mother's point of view, as she did explain in the video, that's why I say go and look at the video for more context. She explained that her priority is, I'm paraphrasing, her marriage. Her purpose is being a good wife, having a long-lasting marriage, being a submissive wife, being a good wife to her husband. Her validation comes from her husband. The validation of her being a good wife, submissive wife, loving wife, overrides everything else, including being a good mother. And that's also a byproduct of the situation at hand.
Maybe I'll be a good child. But then something that was in me, like I would retaliate. It's not, I'm not going to lay down in bed with this man. One day my mother went to work at the early hours of the morning. Now I was in my bedroom at the very back of the house. My stepfather was, I believe, to be in his bedroom. My sister was also in her bedroom sleeping. I hear my sister like screaming her head off. Yeah, Chanel. Now these are the people that didn't really talk to me that much as one of the siblings also living in the same house. She was screaming at the top of the head. Yeah, Chanel. I quickly run to her bedroom, and guess who I find? I find my stepfather naked. This time he had wrapped himself with the butter on his chest. But when I got to the room, this guy was sitting on the edge of the bed. My sister was laying down on the bed and she took off her underwear. He was touching her on her backside and she was screaming. I started screaming immediately. I picked up some stuff, anything that I could find, started throwing at him just so that he can get off her. I don't know what I had in my hand, but I had something that made him scared. So he left the room, went inside his bedroom, and he locked it and stayed inside. At this point, my sister was shaking. I also was shaking. And I started screaming at the top of my head, how long is this going to go on? We've done it for so many years. At this point, I was about 16 or 17.
What sister was this?
The one that I caught in the kitchen being
It's her as well.
Yeah, it was her. And then I started screaming at the top of my head, how long is this going to go on? He started doing this since I was little. I was banging on his door because he had locked it, so I couldn't get in. So I took her. At this time, there was about 4 of the children that my mother had with this man. I took all 4 of them and my other sister. We walked out of the house. None of us were safe. I don't know whether he wasn't trying it on with me. He was trying it on with my younger sister. My siblings, they went back home before. After a week or so, they took me home. They took me to the living room where my mother was sitting there. My stepfather was there. This family friend, they were a couple, husband and a wife. They wanted me to apologize to my stepfather for my reaction. I used physical force to get him off my sibling. I was in shock. We sat there for over an hour. And I had decided in my mind, in my heart, that I was not going to apologize. And I'm glad I didn't. I said to them, no, there is no way I'm going to apologize. For what? I decided that was it. I packed my stuff. I called this.
They wanted her to apologize to her stepfather for using physical force to get him off her sibling.
Family cousin. And I said to her, this time, if you're going to kick me out, I'm not going to come back. Now, this time, a few people knew about what was happening. Not only to me, but to my other sibling. I completely moved out. I started living with her from the age of 16 all the way to 18. That's when I left, got into my little room. And then soon after that, I met my husband. I would like to think that I have forgiven my mother. I think I have, because back at the time, I could not stand her. And I could not even believe that this woman was my mother.
So at this point, she confirms that, there's some sort of process of forgiveness. And she had feelings of resentment as a byproduct between the ages of 14, 15, 16 and onwards. And
I resented her for such a long time. I resented her. I did not care whether she was alive. I did not care whether she was well. I did not care. It did not matter to me. I felt alone. I felt lost, trapped, unloved, frightened. I would sleep with knives. Not one, but three types of knives. I had one underneath my pillow and I had 2 underneath my bed. Just so that when you walked into my bedroom in the middle of the night,
you could defend yourself.
I could defend myself. My siblings, they knew about it. My mother, she knew about it because sometimes she would also come into my room and she would take the knives away and I would go and find them again and keep them there. And it has taught me God knows how many years for me to be able to sit here to open up about it without feeling ashamed of it. I felt ashamed of myself for such a long time. Why me? To this day, in the Congo community, I'm the bad one. I'm the black sheep. I'm the nasty one. But people did not know that I was fighting this guy just so that I did not lay in bed with.
So she was feeling ashamed of her story. She had questions like, why me? And if there's one thing that you would take away from this video, at least one thing, I want you to remember what I mentioned about the prime ages, the sexual market value. If you now understand that you've come into a world where there are predators, you've come into a world or children are being born, as they say that saying of, I'm not protecting you from the world, I'm protecting the world from you. So, for example, they're the mediator. They stand in the middle with the world on their back, behind their back, and protecting you from the world. Or protecting the world from you, coming to you. A person can only do so much. A parent or carer can only do so much. You may be asking, why me? It's not necessarily, as you said, it's not just clothing that is the reason, as you said, or the lady in question herself said that She didn't dress indecently. It's not just, let's say, you knew what it feels like to be sexually attracted to somebody, let alone your stepfather. It's not that your mother didn't care enough to protect you, or she didn't care enough to protect her. So you may be asking, why me? And you need to understand that when you come into a world such as this, there are realities that, whether you choose to accept it or not, whether you choose to understand it or not, whether you are aware of it or not, whether you are educated about it or not, it will still take place. Whether it's close or far, near or beyond, it will still happen. So, again, I re-emphasize that under 18, children, women, girls, and boys under the age of 18 are all they're victims of predators, of minor attracted people, where you would think a responsible man, a responsible adult, caregiver, caretaker, parent would have a moral compass that is not distorted. But unfortunately, it is the case. And if we turn a blind eye on it, if parents turn a blind eye on it, if future parents turn a blind eye on it, and we act like it's not happening, like it can never happen to someone we know or ourselves, then we are only fooling and setting ourselves up for failure. We are fooling and setting our future children or current children and placing them in much more danger than they are exposed to. Why me? Why me? You, because you were born a female and unfortunately you were amongst a statistic of young girls that, let's say, I don't have the exact numbers right now, but 6 out of 10, use the previous examples I gave, 6 out of 10 girls. If you line up 10 girls, 6 of them out of 10 are either assaulted, molested, you name it. And it's by the people we least expect, unfortunately. So it's not because of the family you're born in. Sometimes, yes, it's not because of curses. Certain biology of men don't respect women. They don't fear women. They don't fear young girls. There's two things. They fear the law and they fear some of them. If you ever asked, why do I like or why am I attracted to God-fearing men? Because they fear a man that has more than them, has greater power than them, has more authority than them. The law is able to physically give consequences to actions such as this. Women by nature, because of the way our biology is set up, because of how we love and we want to continue to have our family connected one way or another, we look beyond a man's insecurities, or again, not myself, we as women, we do become enablers in the name of protecting ourselves, in the name of protecting the name of the family. As I asked before though, to what extent? So if you are watching this, Mama Chanel, and again, this video has brought some answers to your questions, please, I would consider that you do take up some sort of therapy, especially with IAIW, because I'm sure there are more questions that you may have that can be answered in a non-judgmental environment, and it also will help speed up your healing process. There are many women, there are many children, there are many girls that, again, will be inspired by your story, but we don't just want them to be inspired by your story. We want them to have answers to their stories, answers to their questions. It's the first step of having the courage to speak up, yes. But if you only end at that step, again, what has been really done? The main goal is to be the healed version of yourself, to heal that inner child, to heal that younger 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 15, 16, 17-year-old girl. She requires answers. Because I'm sure I've only answered certain questions to a certain extent, and certain matters that are confidential. Reason to why content like this is very limited, because clients that do come to ask questions, because the information is confidential, it is somewhat difficult to bring certain stories or people or ideas on this platform.
Even, and my mother knew about this throughout the whole time. That my mother hated me that much was because I was speaking out. Because my mom had already bad-mouthed me to everybody. Nobody believed what I was saying. I shouldn't have to feel bad about it, no. Yeah. Just because I refused to lay in bed with my stepfather. And I encourage anyone out there to speak out about it. You don't have to hide it. When something's wrong, call it out. Mm-hmm. Make it known to people. Because it was okay for them because I was not speaking out. She was an enabler. And she kept silent about it. That's so sad. Thinking about it, to this day, I find it difficult to make friends because I have nothing to say. When anybody comes around me, I'm thinking, okay, you probably know that I'm the bad one, so I have nothing to say to you. Where do you feel you are today? Do you feel as though you've healed? Do you feel as though you're at the beginning of your healing journey? You're still in the process. Like, where do you feel today? I would say that I am in the beginning of the healing. The healing process? I'm in the healing process. I've just started with it. Okay. The courage that I have to come and see and speak about it, knowing that I'm no longer ashamed. I do not care what others think or say about me. You know, I pat myself in the back. Yeah. I refuse to be by him. What is your relationship right now like with your biological mom? I have no relationship with my mother. I just feel sorry and pity for myself. I put up with it for such a long time and I did not call out. I did not inform the police of this was responsible. Just share with someone if they're going through anything similar to this, because no one should have to go through this alone and no one should have to suffer in silence. Like, that's one of the worst things that the devil tries to do to people in their trauma. He tries to silence you so that you don't come out and allow that cycle to be broken. Looking back on all of these, I know that I didn't handle it well, resenting people just because of what they thought. And this has made me like really bitter towards the people around me and even towards my own children. Like, I became very emotionally unavailable. Yeah, emotionally unavailable, very closed up. The pain is just too deep to explain, you know? The pain is just overwhelming. I'm a grown-up woman. I'm in my 40s. Look how long it took me to speak about it.
So she's in her late 40s at the beginning of her healing journey. And again, in another one of Love's video, she does confirm that her mother at some point was also emotionally unavailable and overprotective. This is just a byproduct of her upbringing, of not knowing any better, of, again, what she witnessed is what she reapplied. If we look at our community today, we can bear witness to the evidence of sexual exploitation of children, both online and offline. And unfortunately, right now, we can actually report things like this. We can report content. We can report to the relevant legal, the appropriate authorities. But unfortunately, the minors in question or in relation to this video, that can relate to this video, may not be aware of how to contact and trust these authorities, as they can only do so much. So, in conclusion, I am deeply committed to child safety and have a zero tolerance for predatory behavior or grooming behavior towards minors. If you liked this video, please do press the like button down below. Please do share this video. Let me know what part of this video stood out to you. If you've learned something new, please do let me know. I know that this was a long video, but when something needs to be said, again, I do prefer to keep it short and sweet, but things like this, which are very close to heart, close to the work that I do on a day-to-day basis, it requires in-depth explanation. And again, hopefully there is more content like this. If you do like this content and would like to see more, please do let me know, and we can have in-depth conversations about taboo topics, mental health topics within the community, internationally. And if you do want to join me in reading my current book that I quoted in this video, feel free to also let me know. If you have not yet subscribed, please do press the subscribe button below and join the family, join our community, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for watching. If you have reached this far, I do appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. Thank you, and it's your one and only Miss 5MT. Bye for now.